Okay, hopefully this will work now. Please bear with me as I was having some technical issues, but you should be good now to share my or see my screen. Very light news this week. After last week, we had FOMC and NFP last week as we started the opening of May. We have no news on Monday, no news on Tuesday. We have light news on Wednesday in the PM session with a 10-year bond auction. Thursday at 8:30 a.m. you have unemployment claims, and then you also at 1 o'clock have a 30-year bond auction. So you've got two red folder news events there on Thursday. And then on Friday at 10 a.m. you've got consumer sentiment, and then on top of that, inflation expectations. So more so of a lighter week with regards to news, and for the most part, Thursday and Friday is kind of that area in which we want to potentially be a student or study or participate in the market. So keep that in the back of your mind there. Just looking for more so what's going on. What have we done Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday leading up to Thursday at 8:30, and then at equities open at 9:30 as well. How could this potentially factor in where we might be going? I will now go into the dollar. Okay, so dollar on a weekly. We did close a little bit below this BISI, so I am just very cautious of that, understanding that we did necessarily close below the BISI here. Um, Going to give it this next week to see if we want to close back above it, or if not, if we do show follow through here, then I'll start to target maybe these lows, this low in here and the rest of this fair value gap. But I'm giving it next week. I want to see what next week does, because I still am bullish on this. On a daily, we talked about how from this low to this high we had established a range, right? We came in here, we had two BISIs, but this was the one in discount. So we wanted to see from here, when price came into here, did we get any new displacement from there? We did not. We engineered buy side liquidity in the form of a double top, and now we are actually kind of coming off of that move, delivering into a discount of this range. And now here we have this larger BISI, and you can see on Friday we delivered down into it and are now kind of somewhat sensitive of it closing outside of it after touching the consequent encroachment. So now I'm curious to see how we play inside this BISI going into the early half of this week. Where are candle closure, and do we get new displacement to the upside? Then we can start to see our first buy side or our buy side liquidity target, and then potentially our second one. But I want to see, do we get new displacement on a 4-hour or daily from there? We might manipulate at this wick. We might take this out and reach a little bit deeper. I'm not quite sure, right? On a weekly, we might use this as a previous week low and then come and wick out and then go higher. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I am bullish on dollar though, still just curious to see new displacement. But to me, this is where I'm looking right here. My eyes are going right here. Curious to know if we might need to range a little bit more before we get there, but that's where I'm looking at price potentially going towards. All right, ES. Couple things on ES. We had a little tiny SIBI in here. You can see price closed above it right here. Right, so like it's a very tiny SIBI, but price did close above it. Right, so we closed above it. So I'd be curious to see what that might mean for ES on a monthly. Right, you're pulling back outside this monthly BISI. So this is an area where I'm curious to know, do we actually get some follow through? Then we might be able to want to come back up here. But if not, right, we're in such a odd range for where we are from low to high, coming up into equilibrium from this high to this low, back in a premium. You can see we had a daily SIBI in here. We are starting to get some closure above it with displacement, right? Candle bodies respected down here, very nicely recovered. There's just no new displacement anywhere in here being formed, right? We don't have any new follow through on the downside. We don't have any new displacement so far on the upside, but I would be curious to see if we do create some form of displacement in here, or do we use this as inversion? Curious to note that. If that's the case, we could start to climb back up into these areas up here. I would also note the 50% of this wick right here. Note that right there. Potentially see what price wants to do there. If we can close above that, then maybe work a little bit higher. But I am curious to know what this wants to do. To me, it's looking like we could get another leg higher after this week, but I'm not 100% quite dependent on it yet. You've got an order block right here. Fix this. There we go. Curious to see what we want to do in here. I'd potentially be looking to see if we do get new displacement. Right, we're at the equilibrium of the range. I could kind of see it going either way. So I just kind of, right now I'm following the displacement and letting the displacement tell me the order flow. But I am curious to see what we're going to do here with regards to Monday. Right, because if Monday creates a BISI, right, then we've got a BISI overlaps with an inverted SIBI, and then I would like to see if price would then come into here and then make a run to at least up here. And then with that, is there new displacement, or do we not necessarily create any more BISIs and then displace to the downside? That's something that I might be kind of looking at and considering. NASDAQ on a monthly, same thing, right? So new monthly candle now. We had this BISI in here. That's something that I'm a little curious about too. Look at the candle closure and how it's been so respective of it. I'm not saying we're going to continuously start to get a run higher, but it's potentially possible. You've immediately rebalanced this monthly low in here, right? So you got previous month's low. On a weekly, this is why I'm not 100% still bullish on ES, is because we are still respecting this SIBI so far. You've got a weekly SIBI in here that I believe has not quite been fully filled, but very close, but closed within it. So it didn't necessarily close outside of it. Same thing on a daily too, right? To me, it's just a little bit more clearer on NASDAQ. If we can start to close above this, then we might want to run these highs. To me, with the idea of dollar going higher, I would like to see something turn and go lower here, but I do know that the higher time frames can potentially guide me to believe that on these monthly time frames, filling in these gaps, We could get another run higher. We could range in here for a little bit. To me, it's just seeing, do I get that new displacement higher on dollar, and with that, does that come displacement lower here? But for the most part, we are in the premium of this range now. So I'm really curious to see, do we create on Monday a new BISI, and then from there I can start to follow that throughout. Right, so the main focus for me going into Monday, I'm not trading Monday. Right, I don't trade Mondays, but I use them, and so for me, one thing I can start to expect out of Monday, with there's no news, I would expect it to be some form of a smaller ranger day. And so with that being said, with that small range day, if it doesn't trade all the way back down to here, this candle's high, we then now have a BISI in here. And so if there's, for instance, let's just say there's a BISI right here. There's a BISI right here. I now have context in which I can follow, which means if price does come into this BISI, comes back up here, takes out Monday's high and Friday's high, but then we displace through this, right? And we create a new SIBI and we close back below this BISI, right? Then now I now have the clear expectation that price can work its way down, right, into this low. Assuming that dollar is showing us displacement higher, right? If dollar's not displacing higher, price could very well, if it's dropping on dollar, price could very well just create new displacement from here and close above the SIBI. And if you close above the SIBI, you know, you're very likely to potentially get a run higher into these highs. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions? Cool. So we shall see. We shall see. I'm more so just waiting for Monday to set up context for if we do create a BISI, which I'm thinking we do, with no news being out there. I don't think price will trade all the way back down here. So we would have new displacement on NASDAQ. To me, I'm watching that displacement. I'm watching candle body closure with regards to this down close candle in here, acting as a bullish order block potentially. And then overall, I'm seeing with these discount arrays being where they are, and this daily SIBI being where it is, and being inside, all that occurring basically inside a weekly SIBI, you've got kind of this higher time frame potential lead back higher, with this intermediate time frame kind of lead going lower. With, to me, the clear narrative is higher on dollar, so I am not going to quite yet jump the gun on until I see it, until I see displacement. Displacement on dollar is the biggest key for me, but note that it is relatively in the middle of a range, right, from this high to this low. So don't try to be too hard on bias until you can get movement away from one of the two, right? Once we trade into a premium, which we currently are, do we trade away from it and down lower, right? You don't have to be a seller up here. You can get displacement away. You can be a seller down here if you want, right? This is a daily time frame. So even if you're aiming for this low or this low or this low, you can get bits and pieces of it. Same thing on the bullish side. You don't have to be a buyer down here or even in here, right? You can wait for price to close back above here, show you even 4-hour and 1-hour displacement in here, and then from there you could literally play a run from here to here. right? You don't need to capture the whole move. There's areas where you can kind of piece it together and get smaller chunks here and there, especially when it's not clear on, you know, seeing what dollar and indices want to do. I will say though, they are starting to trade against each other, right? You can see the last 2 days of the week on indices we went higher. Last 2 days of the week on dollar we went lower. So that is good to see. You're not necessarily seeing them trading in the same direction, which is good. You want to see them trade vice versa. It's just a matter of potentially displacement, and we did get a little bit of displacement on dollar here, right? We do have a little bit of a SIBI in here, and I will be watching that as well, right? So I can even sit here and put this here, put that there, right? So I'd be curious to see if we want to close back above that or use that as well as the volume imbalance. Some people like to put the volume imbalance in, some people don't. It's all preference. So from there, kind of using this as well. But do note that we pulled all the way into this larger BISI and then closed outside of it after touching the consequent encroachment. It doesn't necessarily look like, doesn't look like anyone has any crazy questions. For the most part, that's really it. I don't know if I'm missing anything or not. Nothing new on my end. Trying to think. Yeah, I think for the most part, we should be good. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I mean, pretty easy, self-explanatory. Not as much going on this week with regards to news, so just be patient. Last week was kind of like a wild week. I really didn't trade at all for the most part. I think I had one or two trades maybe, but Friday's price action kind of threw me off a little bit. I thought we were going to potentially maybe get a reverse lower. We might just get it this week. So I'm curious to see that. I didn't necessarily trade on Friday, but I actually was tape reading it and kind of got thrown off on the price action. So after NFP, we kind of had a gnarly range. But for the most part, yeah, it's just going to kind of be the same old stuff. We'll be on Wednesday for the midweek review, and tomorrow night we have our group study series. And I think that's it for the most part so far. This one's just quick and easy. I know you guys probably enjoy it too. If you guys, obviously, if you have questions, don't hesitate. But it's probably nice to, come in here, get a little idea of what myself or Henry's thinking about, and then kind of going on and enjoying the rest of your day. So appreciate you guys. Enjoy your Sunday. Be safe this week trading, and I will talk to you guys soon.